Ever feel like your emotions are stuck in overdrive, like your brain can't quite catch up?
Yeah, we've all been there.
Well, get ready because today we're diving into a topic that flips that script big time: abreactions in hypnosis.
Abreactions. Intense stuff.
It's like hitting fast forward on emotional processing, but for your unconscious mind.
And not always a smooth ride either. That's what makes abreactions so interesting.
Right. It really challenges that whole idea of hypnosis being all about peace and relaxation.
Exactly, because we're talking about the possibility of really intense, even kind of unsettling experiences coming up during a session.
We're working with insights from Virginie, an expert in advanced conversational hypnosis, and she gets right into it.
Doesn't she?
She describes abreactions as being totally different from just, a bad day. This isn't just feeling sad or angry, it's those feelings, but like amplified.
Exactly, it's huge. It's like your unconscious is trying to process like a backlog of emotions all at once and at lightning speed.
And that's a really important distinction to make because it's not just, oh, they're feeling a bit off.
No,
This is powerful, potentially even frightening stuff.
it really is. And it's different from your typical emotional release during hypnosis. Think negative hallucinations, really intense fear.
Oh.
Imir even talks about clients potentially shouting, even screaming during a session.
So for hypnotherapists, witnessing that firsthand, that's got to be like, okay, things just got real.
Absolutely, yeah. Recognizing these situations and knowing how to handle them, it takes specialized training. You're dealing with the client's unconscious mind in such a heightened, vulnerable state. And it's crucial to respond in a way that keeps them safe, but also helps them heal, even if, the experience itself seems totally chaotic.
So walk us through it. What are the concrete steps a hypnotherapist would take if an abreaction starts happening mid-session?
So constant verbal contact is key. Think of it like a lifeline, right, but in a stormy sea.
Okay.
It's about providing that sense of grounding, some direction, when the client might feel totally overwhelmed.
So even if things are getting really intense, the client's reacting strongly, the hypnotherapist needs to stay present, keep talking.
Exactly, yeah. Eimer suggests using a firm, guiding voice. Imagine a very calm and reassuring presence, but one that can kind of cut through the chaos that's happening. It's not just about talking, it's about using the right tone, the right language, to guide the client through the abreaction safely.
Like a lighthouse in a storm, guiding them back to calmer waters.
Yes, exactly. And, just as important as what to do is what not to do.
Okay.
For example, you want to avoid physical touch during an abreaction, even if you're, intending to comfort them.
Interesting.
Because in these heightened states, touch can be misinterpreted by the subconscious, or it could even create a negative association.
Wow, yeah, like accidentally wiring someone to associate a hug with a panic attack. Definitely not what we're going for.
Exactly. It's about understanding that in this raw state, even well-intentioned actions, they can be misinterpreted by the subconscious mind. So, talking is good, touching, not so much.
Gotcha. So what other tools does a hypnotherapist have?
Well, Imir really emphasizes grounding techniques. So if a client's feeling surrounded by darkness, for example, the hypnotherapist might counter that with something like come towards the light.
Okay.
It's about using imagery, suggestions, to pull the person back to the present moment, to their senses, and away from that internal turmoil they might be experiencing.
It's like a delicate dance almost. You're staying calm and collected, but also adapting to whatever the client is experiencing in real time.
It really is. It requires a very deep understanding of the subconscious mind, hypnotic techniques, and the ability to think on your feet. But here's where things get really interesting.
You're going to say there's an upside to this whole roller coaster ride, aren't you?
Exactly. As jarring as abreactions might seem, they might not always be a bad thing.
Okay.
There's a whole school of thought that suggests abreactions could actually be a sign of the unconscious mind working through really deeply rooted issues. But at an accelerated pace.
Hold on. So you're saying these intense episodes, they could actually be the unconscious mind's way of like fast-tracking therapy?
That's the idea. Imagine your unconscious saying, okay, look, I know this is intense, but trust me on this. We're going to power through this. And while the experience itself could be completely overwhelming, what's fascinating is that for many people, the aftermath is, well, surprisingly uneventful.
Uneventful in what way?
Well, Imir notes that many clients who go through abreactions, they have little to no memory of the experience afterwards.
Really?
It's like their unconscious mind did some serious decluttering, but their conscious mind completely missed the before and after photos.
Wow. Okay, so now that we've sort of explored these potential benefits, how about we dive into what it's like to actually experience an abreaction, both from the client's and the therapist's perspectives? So let's get inside the experience a little bit. Say you're the client, right? We're there for hypnosis. You're maybe expecting to feel super relaxed, and then suddenly things take a hard left turn.
Yeah. And it can feel like this whirlwind of emotions just kind of erupts seemingly out of nowhere.
Wow.
Amir mentions that a lot of clients who have these abreactions, they have trouble relaxing even before the hypnosis starts. Like they have difficulty sleeping.
Yeah.
It's almost like their unconscious is already on high alert,
Yeah.
trying to deal with all this pent-up tension, trying to find a release.
So at that point, the hypnotherapist has to become less of a guide and more like, I don't know, a crisis support line almost.
In a way, yeah. It really is where all their training comes in. They've got to stay calm, be present, be
Right.
responsive, even when the client's going through something incredibly intense and probably really disorienting. They're listening for those little clues,
Sure.
and using their voice, their techniques to help the client navigate the experience safely.
Which really underscores just how important that therapeutic relationship is, right? That trust between the hypnotherapist and the client.
Absolutely. Because in that vulnerable state, you really need to feel like you're in capable hands.
Oh, absolutely.
And it reminds us that even though we're dealing with the subconscious mind here, the hypnotherapist's own presence, their energy, their ability to stay grounded, it all matters. It has a direct impact.
Right. And this is where Imir's case study comes in. She talks about a hypnotherapist using light imagery to help a client who felt surrounded by darkness during a session.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example. It really shows how powerful metaphorical language can be and how important it is to think on your feet in those situations. Because the client's experience of darkness, it wasn't just about a lack of light, right? It represented something deeper, maybe feeling lost or overwhelmed or even afraid.
And the hypnotherapist picked up on that and used the imagery of light to pull them back, like a lifeline, a way out of the darkness towards safety and hope.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good reminder that every abreaction, every single client, every session, it's unique. There's no script for this. It takes flexibility, intuition, and a really deep understanding of how to work with that unconscious mind.
So let's say an abreaction happens. The hypnotherapist helps the client through it. Session ends. What happens next? I know Imir mentioned clients often don't remember the experience itself, but are there any lasting effects even if the conscious mind doesn't log it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's where things get really interesting, and I have to be honest, it's where we need a lot more research. But there's growing anecdotal evidence to suggest that abreactions, as intense as they are, can actually be incredibly transformative.
So even if it feels like a chaotic blip in their experience, their subconscious could be going through like a major growth spurt.
It's possible. Imagine a dam holding back this rushing river. An abreaction, in this analogy, would be like a controlled release of all that water. Yes, the initial surge is going to seem intense, even a bit scary. But ultimately,
Ultimately, it creates a healthier flow.
exactly. And just like that river that carves its own path over time, clients may find that after an abreaction, things just feel different,
Different.
lighter, less burdened. They might even notice that their symptoms are less intense, even if they don't know exactly why.
It's like their internal landscape has shifted, but their conscious mind was out to lunch or something.
Right. It's such a fascinating paradox. These really intense and often forgotten experiences could be these powerful catalysts for change. And it challenges how we traditionally think about healing. It highlights just how much potential there is in the unconscious mind.
Speaking of potential, what about the hypnotherapist? What kind of impact does guiding someone through an abreaction have on them? It seems like it take a toll.
Oh, for sure. That's a great question, and one that doesn't get asked enough.
Yeah.
Because being present for these really raw, vulnerable moments, it can be humbling, but it can be emotionally demanding.
It really is like they're holding space for someone else to, go through an emotional earthquake.
Exactly. And it takes a lot of emotional resilience to do that. Self-awareness, too.
Right.
Imir actually talks about this. She says, you can't pour from an empty cup.
True.
A hypnotherapist needs to have their own emotional resources in check. Otherwise, they can't really guide anyone through something so intense.
So I imagine hypnotherapists who specialize in this kind of work, they probably have their own support systems to process these experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Ongoing supervision is super important. So is peer support. And a lot of them are also in therapy themselves. It's crucial.
Yeah, taking care of yourself so you can take care of others.
Exactly. It's like that oxygen mask on the airplane, right?
Makes sense. So we've talked about the client's experience, the hypnotherapist's role, even touched on self-care for the practitioner. But what's the big takeaway here for our listeners, even if, they're not training to be hypnotherapists?
Well, it really gets you thinking about the unconscious mind, doesn't it? I mean, abreactions are rare, but they remind us just how much is happening beneath the surface.
It's like we tend to think about emotional healing as this linear thing, but what if sometimes it takes this detour, through the unexpected, the intense, the kind of chaotic?
Right. Abreactions really challenge those assumptions about how change happens, and they remind us to be open to the possibility that sometimes the biggest changes, they happen outside of our conscious control.
So maybe those moments when we feel totally overwhelmed by our emotions, like our feelings are stuck on fast forward, maybe that's our unconscious mind working behind the scenes.
It's definitely a possibility. And while I don't think anyone would wish an abreaction on themselves,
Right.
understanding this phenomenon, it can give us a new appreciation for just how adaptable and resilient the human mind really is.
It really does make you think. So, listeners, as you go about your day, here's something to consider. What if those moments of really intense emotion, even the fleeting ones, what if those are actually shortcuts, like
Yeah,
on the path to becoming a more whole version of ourselves?
that's a great point.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the world of abreactions and hypnosis. We hope you found this conversation as enlightening as we did. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and as always, keep diving deep.